the Why You're Wrong Fantasy Football Podcast. We are on episode 29. We're doing the rapid fire of the NFC South and a 10-team mock draft today. Getting into our usual intro, I'm your monotone master. I'm here with my other co-host, the Fantasy Force here, Brian Tembo. We are joined by the Raging Rumney, and we've got a guest on the show today, William Knox III.
Knock off for Will.
You don't have a nickname yet, Will.
I'm fine with what you said.
So you can find our podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts now, as we've all cracked our gears. You can also find us on social media at YouTube, TikTok and Instagram as Why You're Wrong FFB, and on Twitter as You're Wrong FFB. But before we get into the news, Will, could you give us your fantasy football background and history?
Fantasy football background.
We want to hear it. The viewers want to hear
So
it.
let's see. I probably started in the 4th grade with some random people. And then I started in your league with these guys. Well, what year was that? A few years ago? 5 years ago?
5 years ago, yeah.
Won the first year.
Beginner's
And
luck.
every time someone joins our league, they always win first
Make
years.
playoffs every year. And then I actually won your league, John's league, the first year as well. And then I left
I
for some
wasn't in
reason.
it though. That's why.
I'll win it this year.
John's also rocking the shades today because it's a little too bright in here.
Yeah, it's the sun's out.
That's smart.
Well, I do have to ask you, just got to keep it PG. But if you want to call someone a very PG insult or nickname, feel free to.
Well, you can't say PG-13 or
PG-13.
no.
Okay.
Yeah.
PG-13.
We're going church.
Church style. But if you want to call John and Con Henny Ninnamuggins, then that's fine.
I don't really want to say that word.
All right, back in action.
That would just be mean.
All right, getting into some impactful news. This headline has really no impact on fantasy at all. I just thought it was hilarious when I saw it. Is Mitch Trubisky. It's nice to be somewhere where people want you. He's currently the backup in Buffalo behind Josh Allen.
Wasn't he the backup last year, too?
He started a few games,
Yeah.
Especially towards-
No, he started off as a starter and then sucked so bad that he ended up on the bench.
and then came back off the bench because Nick Foles was also being terrible, because Nick Foles is only good in the playoffs.
Fair enough.
Tough situation.
But a more impactful news story is that out of Bengals camp, Jamar Chase has actually been struggling. News is that he's having a hard time getting separation and not winning a lot of contested catches. He hasn't played football since the 2019 season because he sat out of 2020. Joe Burrow is also showing struggles in camp, just really coming off that major leg injury he had last year. How do you guys feel right now about this 1-2 punch that the Bengals are really hoping comes to fruition?
I think that LSU had one of the best football teams of all time, and Jamar Chase is going to be just fine, and Joe Burrow is also going to be just fine. But hey, if it drops Jamar Chase's stock or his draft value, then so be it. Then I'll take him later in the rounds.
I mean, I think a year off is obviously going to hurt him, football-wise, but he's going to get it back. It's Jamar Chase. He's there for a reason.
Top.
Same with Burrow.
Top wide receiver, undoubtedly.
Are you comfortable with taking him in the 5th round right now?
No.
No, definitely not. If he drops a little bit lower than that, then sure. Are we talking 10 team, 12 team, or
Talking, I think 10 team, he's in the 5th round.
he's in the 5th round? Nah, I probably wouldn't take him around there. I mean, that'd be your, say you go running back, wide receiver, tight ends, like he'll be a wide receiver too. I don't know if I can really trust
I
that.
think it's one of those things where if you're taking him as your wide receiver 3 in any kind of format, 8-team, 10-team, 12-team, if he's wide receiver 3, then you have the time to put him on the bench and hope for the breakout. But if you're taking him as your wide receiver 2, you might be in for a few hard weeks once he gets used to the NFL
I
system.
mean, plus they have T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. You don't know how that's going to be shared. I mean, he's really just a boomer bust guy, but has all the ceiling in the world.
Also, Drew Lock is opening the first preseason game. Teddy Bridgewater is opening the second preseason game. The Broncos are really going to make us wait until week 1. Neither of these quarterbacks are fantasy relevant. I just think for the weapons on the Broncos offense, be better off with Teddy Bridgewater running the ship, because Drew Lock is so up and down, and I just have never seen him be consistent at all. To me, Drew Lock is the current Mitch Trubisky of the NFL.
I gotta think Drew Lock
big take,
is a better thrower than Teddy Bridgewater. That might be a hot take. I have no stats to back it up.
I don't know.
I think
that's a hot take. I don't know. I think
I
they're.
think I'll take Bridgewater.
I think I'd take Bridgewater too. I mean, I don't think either of them are gonna have a team that's over 500 anyways, no matter who they start.
Yes.
But I think that if we
Defense
want
looks
Jerry
good,
Jeudy and Cortland Sutton to be good this year, I think Teddy Bridgewater is the guy.
Another news story out of camp. Sammy Watkins is the only healthy wide receiver for the Baltimore Ravens. Hollywood Brown is banged up. Rashad Bateman just barely was able to limp off the practice field. So Sammy Watkins, the week 1 guy of showing out and then never showing up ever again, is the only guy in the Ravens camp for wide receiver. But also at the same time, that really just means Mark Andrews is the only passing option for the Ravens.
Exactly. Sammy Watkins, I feel like, always goes off in week one, no matter what team he plays for. I feel like the Chiefs, every single time, like he was on the Chiefs week one, he would just go off for like 102, and then he just falls off for the rest of the season, or gets hurt, or something happens to him, gets some cuts. But
Well, he has trouble as a wide receiver one, in my opinion.
yeah,
If he's a wide receiver one, he's going to get a lot of attention. He's not going to go off like he usually does. Let's remember, you got to remember, he's been on the Chiefs offense.
he's also
the past
being
few
thrown
years.
by Lamar Jackson now too, which is kind of concerning.
Right.
Some ducks in the air. Some good news, though. Amari Cooper has passed the physical about his ankle. He's been moved from the PUP. And now that it's Hard Knocks, we're going to see all the Cowboys players take a jump in ADP because they're going to be on TV 4 days leading up, and just HBO specials. People who pay attention to that are just going to draft them a few spots earlier just because they see him on TV and they think they're better than they are. Amari Cooper is still very talented. It's just with him being on Hard Knocks, he might be going higher than you want him coming off an injury.
You want to know? I found something funny actually, that Amari Cooper is going as the 13 wide receiver this year, and I saw like a video. He's never finished above the wide receiver 15, yet he's going as the wide receiver 13. Ever in his career has never been over ranked 15 at the end of the season, which is pretty crazy to think about.
I think it's
Probably won't happen this year.
Amari Cooper is that guy that he has stretches where he's the wide receiver one for weeks and then just falls off a cliff and disappears for stretches that really just destroy you fantasy-wise.
Big CD Lamb guy though this year.
Another big injury that we kind of mentioned before the podcast started is that Carson Wentz is trying to come back for week one, and so is Quentin Nelson. But right now the Colts are looking at rookie Sam Eilander. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Eilinger is seeing first-team reps at camp. Even though he's a rookie, he could have some promise. I'm just avoiding every single Colts option right now.
I think they would end up going up with Jacob Eason, just because he has one more year of experience, and it sounds like the stuff I've been reading. It sounds like they want Eason just because he's one of the
Just
more year of
or the
experience.
return of Nick Foles.
Maybe to
Also, this is sad news for you Patriots fans, but Hunter Henry is expected to miss several weeks with a shoulder injury he suffered in camp. Hopefully he can come back for the season because he seems to be the focal point of the passing offense right now. But do you guys think Jonnu Smith would be any more relevant now with Hunter Henry sidelined? Or
Absolutely.
I think so. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that now he's down. Definitely.
So, to share some insight with you guys, when I was at Patriots camp taking pictures for a few weeks, I saw Jonnu Smith getting some goal line carries on a few sweeps, so he could be in there vulturing a few touchdowns.
Oh, yeah, he would do that in the Titans, too. I mean, he's a versatile tight end.
He's fast. He's like really. I think he runs like a 4.4 or something like that. As a tight end.
He's fast.
He's fast. He's really fast.
A guy who used to be really fast hasn't been very fast for very long. Saquon Barkley may not be returning until week 3. There are some reports he may return in week 1. Corey Clement is next up on the list. Barkley has been falling in drafts at the moment because of this news. Do you guys have confidence in taking Barkley in the first round still, or do you guys kind
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No.
I'm gonna
Will would know.
of...
Oh, yeah, I had him 2 years ago when he... Was it 2 years ago when he got hurt, like, super early?
He
in the
was
year?
hurt, played most of the season, but if you made playoffs when he came back, he made you really happy.
Jonathan Taylor and Saquon in my first round drafts are just not even on my roster. Like, I'm not taking either of them.
Some more news. Will Lutz, Saints kicker, is reported to miss the start of the season. So he's been a consistent fantasy kicker year after year, but coming off an injury, no Drew Brees. Not super thrilled on Lutz. Other news that really doesn't matter. Mohamed Sanu will be the 49ers wide receiver 3. Do you guys remember that guy, Mohamed Sanu?
I remember him fondly.
Got some good hands.
Or not fondly.
Traded for a second-round pick. Right now, I feel like the only important wide receivers on the 49ers will be Samuel and Ayuk. The only time Sanu will be relevant is if one of those two or both of them somehow miss time during the season, which, given their injury history, is very likely.
Yeah, I like Ayuk. He showed out last year. He's a rookie, too. He's a good player.
I just don't like 49ers players whatsoever.
Most injured team in NFL history last
Sorry,
year.
Georgie.
Another guy that we all know Brian loves, Will Fuller, has been out for a few days with a foot injury.
Because he's off the PEDs. That's what it is. I mean,
Really
he-
is, honestly.
last year,
He was a stud last
everyone's
year.
like, why is this dude still playing? He always gets hurt with a hammy or something. And then we're like, oh, that's why. He's doing PEDs. Makes sense.
It is ironic that he did get a foot injury after.
Yeah, if you get the inside scoop that he's doing PEDs again, draft him. But
The most upsetting news for me right now, and it's actually very impactful for fantasy, is Darren Waller has missed 8 straight practices. Gruden won't comment on it. All he says is he's all right and will be ready, but if he's ready, why isn't he practicing? He's been seen working out in the weight room, working with trainers, but he has not been to practice. How concerned are you guys?
He won't be running the Spider 2 wide banana. I'll tell you that much.
Because he's loaded up to get 160 targets this season. That's why the probably just doesn't want to start him too early.
He's not a big practice guy.
Yeah, Will knows. Inside
Talking about
detail.
practice.
If the season started tomorrow, would you be taking Darren Waller in the 3rd or 4th round?
Absolutely.
With this news?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm taking him over Kittle.
We discussed that earlier on a few episodes. I would also still take Darren Waller over Kittle.
Over Georgie?
Yeah, over Georgie.
I think George Kittle.
Maybe I will. You don't know me.
Getting into our rapid fire of the NFC South section, we don't have time for the deep dives I was doing earlier, so for the last division that we've yet to talk about, we're going to go through rapid fire. So that's going to be, I'm going to give everyone the ADP of the position on the team. We're going to decide if it's a fair position, if they're still there, or if it's overpriced, or just do not draft at all. It's kind of based off a 10-team half PPR format, just to kind of keep the numbers easy. So if I say the 201, that's the 2nd round, first pick in it, and 11th overall. So the first team we're going to talk about is the New Orleans Saints. They've got 2 quarterbacks at the moment. We got Jameis Winston, who didn't play last year. Average draft position is the QB 32, not drafted. Quarterback Taysom Hill, started 4 games in 2020. Quarterback 6 in that stretch, ADP. In the 17th round, if you go that far, quarterback 24. Are you guys feeling about the quarterback situation? Do you think that Jameis going undrafted and Taysom Hill is QB 24? Is that fair? Is it a steal, or is it too much for what they are?
Don't draft either.
I wouldn't draft.
I wouldn't draft either.
If
how I
you,
think
like,
about
I
it.
could see Taysom Hill becoming a plug and play guy if you're kind of squeezed.
A waiver
otherwise,
guy, though.
But yeah, the waiver guy.
You're definitely not going to draft
Yeah.
him. There's way better guys you can draft, at least initially, until you can pick up Taysom Hill week 3 if you find out he's actually a starter.
4 for 4, don't draft either.
Yes.
Running backs, Alvin Kamara finished as running back 1 last year, depending on what format you're using and what time. Like, it's one of those situations where if you count game 17, he's running back 1. If you don't count game 17, he's the running back 2.
So he's running back 2.
I still count game 17, not because fantasy season stops a week before. It's just I can include that as a variable as every other game would be. But right now he's going as the average draft position 104 as the running back 4. His running mate, Latavius Murray, is running back 33, average draft position 14th round. Running back 44 is just his handcuff. Are you guys all confident in Alvin Kamara being the running back 4 off the board? Should he be higher? Should he be lower?
I think that's a fair spot. I'm an Alvin Kamara owner from last season. I think that's pretty fair at 4. I think that Cook, McCaffrey, Henry are all above him, and then you'd say Kamara after that. I mean, you could even argue that Kamara goes above a Henry because there's these...
Whoa.
I would say 3 or 4.
There's this stuff going around that Henry's going to regress from last season because he doesn't catch passes. He's not going to rush for 2,000 yards again, but I don't know. I'd probably still take
Have you
Kamara
seen
at 4.
Derrick Henry?
I know he doesn't get hurt, so he's very reliable, but at the same time, he doesn't catch passes.
Yeah, he's still
I
a
do
first
for
round
it.
guy. You got to draft him in the first round.
For me, it's like he is a coin flip between Derrick Henry and Alvin Kamara. Kamara finished with more fantasy points with less than half of the carries because Kamara's game comes from the reception totals. I think people are a little wary about that just because we don't know what the quarterback situation looks like. I'm just confident that Sean Payton knows that his best player on the field is Alvin Kamara. So if I take him at 3, I'm happy. If I take him at 4, I'm happy because I know he's not getting to 5.
Definitely.
Looking at the wide receiver room, we got Traquan Smith right now. Finished last year as the wide receiver 69, going undrafted as the wide receiver 72. And former Super Bowl champion Chris Hogan, wide receiver 155 last year. Undrafted, unlisted too. I don't really want either of these guys because with all the years Traquan Smith was in the system, he never flashed or did much to begin with.
If I ever draft Chris Hogan, I'm not playing.
You're getting kicked out of the league.
Would you rather Chris Hogan or Hoagie Sandwich?
Hoagie Sandwich.
Is that a trade offer?
Oh,
So
tight end. Right?
consensus, yeah, we're going to get to him, Brian. But consensus, we're not drafting.
Brian's getting antsy over there.
Best tight end in the league.
So
Don't
tight
draft
end.
either. Don't draft either of the wide receivers.
Yeah.
But yes, moving on.
Adam Big Mouth Trapman. I think that's his nickname. It's just take me to the river, toss me in the water. He's gonna eat up all those
Take me to the
receptions.
river.
He's the Blake Jarwin of last year.
He is.
He is going to be the guy. He's going to be a monster.
Last year he finished as the tight end 57. Right now his ADP is actually undrafted as the tight end 20. But why people are really high on Adam Troutman this year is that you got no Michael Thomas, which means he could easily take over as the number one target in the system. He was graded out as the best pass blocking tight end last year, which means he's going to be on the field for every single offensive snap. And he's now the number one tight end on his team. So he could just be a means to an end, just getting every single reception possible. And that could mean touchdowns. That could mean red zone targets. Not exactly sure yet. We just know he's not going to disappear into nothing. He's going to be a necessity for the Saints offense.
My take, Jameis Winston starts. Adam Troutman's going to be a beast. Taysom Hill starts. Then we're talking a little bit different.
I think.
I mean, Winston loves his tight ends.
That's what I'm saying.
Also, just think, if Adam Troutman is the best receiving target, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. He'll be one of the first
I definitely
ones.
will draft him if I have the opportunity late in the rounds, for sure, because I think he has a lot of upside.
Going into the next team, we've got the Carolina Panthers. Quarterback Sam Darnold, quarterback 30 last year, ADP undrafted as the quarterback 34. I'm on the board. Don't draft him. Don't even stream him. Are you guys in agreement?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Moving on to the most important player, we got Christian McCaffrey. Injured last year, finished as running back 53, but his average draft position this year is the 101, running back 1. Should be the first guy drafted in every single fantasy league.
Yep.
Maybe there's Dalvin Cook truthers that take Dalvin Cook over Christian McCaffrey, but you should still take Christian McCaffrey anyway. I think we all can agree on that. Chuba Howard is his handcuff. Average draft position is in the 16th round, running back 53. Are you guys on board where if you take Christian McCaffrey, you're going to do Chuba Howard as your last pick, just at the insurance policy?
I mean, they still have Bonifon, who's been the handcuff.
Bonafon's kind of been nice when he played. He's a good receiving back. He's small, he's shifty, but
I think they play Albert.
Yeah.
Because he was that big name in college.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking. So yeah, I probably would as a handcuff.
Speaking of the polarizing players in their wide receiver room, we got DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. DJ Moore finished last year as the wide receiver 22. Right now his average draft position is the middle of the 6th round as wide receiver 21. Robbie Anderson finished last year as the wide receiver 24. His average draft position is in the 10th round, wide receiver 35. It's kind of funny that there's a 4-round split between these guys and they finished so close together. I just think people love the talent of DJ Moore. It's just been, after 3 years in the league, it's just been impossible for him to find touchdowns, which is just making him such a question mark at the wide receiver position.
DJ Moore is like so off and on too. There's weeks where he just blows up, and then there's weeks where he's going to get you like 4 points. So
the quarterback situation is completely changed. I mean, Sam Darnold can sling it.
Can he though?
Yeah. I mean, he's young.
We're not talking about Drew Brees here. We're talking about Sam Darnold.
Right. I mean, the dude's 24 years old. He's on a new team. He was on the Jets
with
his
Adam
entire
Gase.
career with Adam Gase. I mean, come on.
No, I think
like,
Sam Darnold has a lot of talent. I just personally like
both
Robbie
receivers have a boost.
Yeah, I like Robbie Anderson over DJ Moore anyways, even though DJ Moore's getting taken higher.
It's just DJ Moore has been so talented coming into the league. Like, he's a yardage guy. He's Julio Jones light at this point. Since coming to the league, he has the 11th most receiving yards. He just doesn't catch touchdowns for some reason. It's just when they get to the red zone, they don't look towards DJ Moore. And it ends up finishing the season with over 1,000 yards, but only with 4 or 5 touchdowns instead of 8 or 10.
He's one of those guys that's more likely to get a rushing touchdown than a receiving touchdown.
Or like an 85-yard touchdown out of nowhere.
Yeah. He has the talent to take a 5-yard slant to the house. They just don't look for him enough.
That's
in that
Robbie
offense.
Anderson as well.
Yeah.
Robbie Anderson's good, though. I feel like midfield work, Robbie Anderson's kind of the guy to go to.
I mean, he's a deep guy, too.
He's turned into like a Swiss Army knife. Like, he was a deep guy for the Jets, but now he's become more of a PPR guy for the Panthers in this current offense. So if you're in a half PPR or PPR league, Robbie Anderson is a very safe player to take late in drafts.
Definitely.
I agree with that.
Do you guys have any faith in Terrence Marshall Jr., the rookie wide receiver, currently undrafted, wide receiver 184? Do you think he'll make any sort of indent in this offense at all, or are we just kind of leaving him undrafted for the entire season?
Well, with Sam Darnold's MVP season from Romney, I think that it's safe to say you should probably take him later in your drafts.
I didn't say he was going to be an MVP, but I mean, if there's an injury with DJ Moore or Robbie Anderson, pick him up, but I won't draft him.
Tight end Dan Arnold finished last year as a tight end 23. He's undrafted, not even listed. There's no point in drafting this player, correct?
Yes.
Agreed.
Yep.
Moving on to the next team in the division, the Atlanta Falcons. Quarterback Matt Ryan finished last year as the quarterback 12, so he just barely made QB1 status. Average draft position right now is in the 14th round as the quarterback 15. Everyone knows that Matt Ryan is terrible without Julio Jones. Now they don't have Julio Jones for the entire season. How do you guys feel about Matt Ryan? He's off my draft board completely, even though he could be a late round quarterback strategy style.
Yeah, no.
I would say if you're going late quarterback, then you might be stuck with him. So, but
like really late. Like you miss out on all those guys. Like you miss out on the Burrows, Tannehill, Staffords, and I guess you could probably go Matt Ryan.
Yeah,
but
then he's your
Yeah.
QB2 if you, the
Yeah.
last one to take QB2.
Running back Mike Davis was finished last year as running back 15 in relief of Christian McCaffrey. His average draft position is in the 7th round right now as the running back 26. Everyone is kind of on the Mike Davis bandwagon right now just because right now there's really no option behind him. But the team just did sign Deontay Foreman, who had a lot of potential until he tore his Achilles behind Derrick Henry. He's now back on Atlanta because he knows Arthur Smith. He could be a guy that kind of sneaks into the lineup at some point because Mike Davis is a veteran. He's never been the main guy the entire season. It's just I feel like the Atlanta Falcons is that team for a no-name player to take over.
I like.
We have to remember
Davis.
what happened with
Davis.
Gurley last year, right? Gurley was not a good running back the entire year, but he had so much volume. They signed a veteran guy. I mean,
Mike
I could
Davis
see them
catches
just
passes too, and
Right.
they're going to be in garbage time a lot. They're going to be down 30, and they're going to have to just dump off passes. And Mike Davis is that guy. He's going to get 20 carries with a lot of catches. I mean, I'm huge on him.
they're gonna ride him,
I will definitely draft Mike
Yeah.
Davis if I can.
especially
Go
they
above.
got Quadre Olsen
I almost
behind
go.
him. I mean, they got Cordarrelle Patterson. He'll be a third down guy, but
I'd almost go over his ADP. I mean,
I
it's
think
a
I
stretch,
would
but
too. Yeah.
me too.
He's like one of those guys where if you really want a solid RB3 before it gets really thin, he's the guy to grab in the 7th round.
Yeah.
Wide receivers, on the other hand, we got Calvin Ridley, wide receiver 4 last year. Average draft position is the beginning of the 3rd round as the wide receiver 6. Also, we got Russell Gage, wide receiver 37 last year, being disrespected by ADP going undrafted as the wide receiver 61 in most leagues. Right now, it says Calvin Ridley. If he's the best receiver on the board, and I don't like any of the running backs, I love where Calvin Ridley is in drafts right now.
He's gonna regress.
he will regress. I mean, I did take Calvin Ridley in all 3 of my leagues last year as my wide receiver 3, and it definitely paid off for the benefit.
Definitely.
But for this season as a wide receiver 1, I think that Russell Gage gets a bump, but I think Calvin goes down a little bit. I don't think Calvin's going to drop a lot, but
I think
he's still going to get his.
fifth.
I just don't think he's going to put up
Wide
probably
receiver.
the same numbers as did last year.
But last year, Calvin Ridley actually did perform better in games Julio didn't play at all. But you guys still are on the regression bandwagon for Calvin Ridley.
A little bit.
Yeah.
There's something weird about I love Calvin. He's very good, but for whatever reason, I think that he outperformed his game last year, and I just don't see it happening again.
They
this year.
didn't. He's gonna get a lot more respect.
I mean, you definitely can draft him at the wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5, but you gotta expect a little bit of regression this season. That's my take.
Now, the guy that all of social media has been all about, ESPN can't get enough of him, tight end Kyle Pitts, rookie tight end. Average draft position right now in the 10-team league is the 6th round as the tight end 4. I would like Kyle Pitts on my team, but I don't want him in the 6th round.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
agree.
would see him at
there.
4, maybe 6, or probably 6. Because who would there be? Who's number 1? Kelsey.
We got
Kelsey,
Kelsey, Waller, Kittle,
Kittle.
Mark Andrews, Hawkinson.
Yeah, I would say 6.
Yeah, then Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
So-
Definitely not Evan Ingram.
So it's basically, I think we all agree, is that Kyle Pitts is good, but he's a little too overdrafted, too overpriced where he is right now.
Definitely. And I
It's
bet
just
you,
tough to
I
protect.
bet you in real fantasy leagues where you care about drafting, no one's going to take Kyle Pitts at that ADP.
So if Kyle Pitts was to drop, what round would you take him in?
Well, he's going the 6th right now.
6th round in the 10-team league.
Probably mid 7,
Yeah.
around there.
Yeah. I wouldn't look to him till the 7th.
Speaking of the last team, I've saved for last because there's a lot more guys to talk about. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or some people like to call the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So a quarterback, you guys, do you know who he is?
TB.
Tom Brady, quarterback 8 last year, going in the 8th round as the quarterback 9. Right now, you're drafting him because you know of his arm talent, you know of his prowess, you know of his everything.
I've seen his resume.
You've seen it, yeah. We all know his resume. Everyone's excited about Tom Brady because it's year 2 in the Bruce Arians system, which is when quarterbacks typically explode statistically. We saw that through the back half of the first season last year, where Tom Brady just lit up the scoreboard the second half of the season. Do you guys want Tom Brady in the 8th round right now? I think that's honestly a steal for what he might be able to do. I just think someone else might be taking him before I'm comfortable taking him.
Yeah, at least here we live in New England, and everyone loves Tom Brady. He'll probably go above his ADP.
For sure.
I'd like to have Tom Brady as my starting quarterback. I would. That could be biased, but I'd love to have him.
I do too, but I think it's fantasy footballs are also starting to come to an era where you need a running quarterback who can also rush and throw the ball, and Brady does not run the ball and also threw how many touchdowns last year? Like 45, 40, something like that. Low 40s.
He was actually, I think he was on pace to break 50 through the second half of
without
the
any
season.
rushing at all.
Yeah.
So imagine if he has a little bit down of a season. I don't really know if I want Brady in that spot. I think I'd rather take a running quarterback instead. But then again, if you're really down to the wire and you need to take a quarterback, Brady's obviously going to get you the points no matter what.
So another quarterback in that realm that he often goes next to, would you rather have Tom Brady or Jalen Hurts?
Jalen Hurts.
Probably Hurts because he can run.
Yeah. I think his betting for Vegas is they're thinking that he's
Yeah,
going to
man.
run for the most yards out of any quarterback in the league. It's at 800 right now. And he ran for 350 in 5 games, which is kind of crazy.
He was on pace for over 1,000 yards
Oh, yeah.
and a few more, I think 80 more yards than Lamar Jackson last year.
Yeah, I'd definitely take Jalen Hurts over Brady.
So the running back room is a little crowded. We got Leonard Fournette, running back 38, going at the average draft position as the first guy in round 9 at running back 33. Ronald Jones, running back 16 last year, going 1 round early as the running back 30. You got Giovanni Bernard, running back 31. Average draft position is undrafted, running back 71. So it's really just focused on Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones because I feel like people are either on one side or the other. I know I don't want either, even though that could be... I think it's fair Ronald Jones is because he's the quote-unquote starter, depending on who you talk to. But how do you guys feel about these guys?
Avoid at all
yeah.
costs.
Yeah.
If you wanna roll the dice, play some Russian roulette or something, go for it. But
If you want to win.
yeah,
Playoff Lenny? Sure, I'll take him. Ronald Jones also fumbles the ball a lot.
Week 3 lane?
Week 3 Lenny? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, it's tough to tell between the two of them.
So the most important room on this team that people are just have really controversial opinions about is the wide receiver room. So we're going to go one by one. Mike Evans finished last year as the wide receiver 10. You average draft position is middle of the 4th round as the wide receiver 11. Are you guys still in favor of drafting Mike Evans in the 4th round, or are you guys just terrified about how many mouths there are to feed and just avoiding him completely?
no, not at all. They're starting to get some rapport with Brady. He's still the wide receiver 1. He's still the best receiver in the room, in my opinion. 4th round is good.
I don't feel confident with him being my wide receiver 1, but if I had to take him in a game, say I went running back, tight end, and Mike Evans is on the board, I would take him. I wouldn't feel good about
He's a
that.
solid wide receiver too, a high-end wide receiver.
He'll
too.
get you either 3 catches for 3 yards, or he'll get you 110 yards and 3 touchdowns, but it's usually every other week that
I think
happens.
they're probably going to be drafted almost next to each other.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Evans is probably going to win the most touchdowns, and then Godwin will probably be
Most
receptions and
yards.
yards. Yeah.
So Godwin, wide receiver 32 last year due to injury. He's a round later than Mike Evans and going in round 5 as the wide receiver 15. Do you think Chris Godwin finishes above wide receiver 15 this year?
He was hurt a lot of games last year. People forget that. A lot of fantasy people out there hate Godwin, and I don't really understand why. He's a slot receiver. He's the go-to guy in the offense when it comes to getting a first down. I understand AB is going to have a better season, a bigger role this year, but I kind of like Godwin, honestly, in this offense. A lot of people disagree, though.
Yeah.
So
I think it's fair. I'm just so skeptical of this
whole
loaded offense.
This whole offense is so skeptical. It's just you kind of have to gamble and just take one of them and hope they're the best.
So speaking of the gamble, the guy that I really want to take that I find myself taking a lot just as the what if is Antonio Brown, wide receiver 66 last year, but when he joined the team weeks 9 through 17, finished the year as the wide receiver 21. His average draft position is all the way down in the 12th round, being buried as the wide receiver 41. I think he's an absolute steal at this point. It's basically you're throwing him on your bench and hoping that he does something similar to Chris Godwin. I'm happy if he finishes within the top 20 at wide receiver with how late he's going.
He was the number one wide receiver in football for about 7 years or 6 years in a row. I think at that ADP, it's almost worthwhile just taking him because he has all the ceiling in the world.
I'm sure he'll be taken way before that.
Oh, definitely, 100%. Just for the boomer bust factor.
He's quintessential boomer bust.
Now the tight end room, this is kind of where it gets a little kind of like thin ice for me. Rob Gronkowski, tight end 8 last year, average draft position in the 12th round. Tight end 9. Are you guys still high on taking Rob Gronkowski as a fantasy tight end? Tight end 8 kind of like that edge where it's like someone else could easily replace him in the top 10 tight ends. He's really just there because Brady asked him to come. Brady loves throwing the ball to him. Is he still fantasy relevant this year?
He's a low end wide receiver 1 or tight end 1.
He doesn't play in the beginning of the season. We're all Patriots fans. We understand what they do with Rob Gronkowski. They make him block for the first 12 weeks of the season, gets like 4 targets a game, if that, and then he absolutely blows up when it's time to dial it in and make a run towards the playoffs. Like, I mean, he's so injury prone to the point where they kind of have to do that, and especially with the expanded season. I mean, I probably wouldn't take him, especially with OJ Howard there now too.
I don't know if he's injury prone anymore.
Not anymore.
They don't use him like they used to.
Exactly, because he only gets like 4 targets a game.
Because behind him they have OJ Howard and Cameron Brate still, so that's 2 like relevant tight ends that can get targets even if Gronkowski's on or off the field in that offense.
So that itself would be like, I'm not going to draft him because of that reason.
Yeah. Give me Adam Trautman.
Gonna take me to the river, bro?
Take me to the river.
Now we're gonna get into our mock draft. We're gonna do a half PPR draft. It's gonna be 10 teams, and we haven't actually picked our picks yet. So we're gonna take a second to tune out, decide where we're all going to draft, and we're gonna tune right back into the mock draft. And the draft has now started. We have gone Will as the first pick, Brian's got the second, I drew the third, and we got John all the way at 8th. So who are you going to take first off the board, Will?
Obvious pick, Christian McCaffrey.
Is it obvious?
It is. Second obvious pick, Dalvin Cook.
So here's like what we get interesting, because it's like we had this discussion earlier in the podcast. Right now, I just want to believe that Alvin Kamara is still going to be the focal point of his offense. Derrick Henry could be perfectly fine this season. It's just coming off the year that he just had. It's very unlikely that he does something similar. So I'm not going to doubt Alvin Kamara, and I'm going to go Alvin Kamara at 3.
I would probably do the same.
So we saw Derrick Henry, Barkley, Taylor, Chubb, and now we're at 8 with John Romney.
Yeah, so they want me to take Tyreek Hill, but I'm the type of dude that likes to have a bona fide RB1 that I won't be worried about ever. As we talked about last week, I love Aaron Jones and that offense. I'm going to take Aaron Jones over Zeke and Tyreek Hill.
And that's fair because Aaron Jones has been a dominant fantasy back over the past 2 years. People don't want to give him that title, but he's been a top basically 5 or 10 running back the past 2 seasons, eats up a lot of touchdowns. There's no reason he shouldn't be a first-round draft pick. So after Aaron Jones, we saw Tyreek Hill go off the board. Zeke rounded out round 1. Then we saw Joe Mixon, Devontae Adams, Team 9 going for the early wide receiver style. And now we're back to Romney with his second-round pick.
All right. So here's my options here. I could go Kelsey, Eckler. I'm not an Eckler fan. Stephon Diggs, DeAndre Hopkins, Antonio Gibson, all these guys. If you have a top tight end, your team is in great shape because they're so few and far between. I'm going to take Travis Kelce because it's just a game changer every time he's on the field.
Wow,
And
I can't believe you didn't take Eckler.
What?
I think Eckler could possibly be the best running back in fantasy this year.
So I do like Eckler, but Travis Kelce there is still a strong pick. he doubles what the tight end 4 will do. He basically averages 16 to 18 points a game as a tight end. He is the number one option on the best passing game in football. So you're basically drafting a top 5 wide receiver that you get to put in your tight end spot. So it's really hard to argue against it. After that, we saw Austin Eckler go off the board, followed by Metcalf, Stephon Diggs, DeAndre Hopkins, and now I get to pick my champion, Antonio Gibson, and I get to pair him with Alvin Kamara. So now we get to Brian Tambo on the board for his second pick at the end of the second round.
Don't choke.
I said I didn't really want to take him here. I'm probably going to take him here anyways. Because I think the person that's going to come back around I'll be able to get. So, assuming that Will doesn't take him. So, I'm going to take Calvin here just to get my wide receiver 1 in the books.
All right, well, finishing at the end of the second round, you actually got some great options on the board. I know who I would take if I was you. You'd have a mighty fine stack with these 2 players, but
Mighty fine.
it'd be interesting to see what strategy you take going at the turn of the second round, third round.
Don't choke.
Don't
I'm
choke.
scared.
Chris Hogan.
Chris Hogan. He's off the board.
All right. Speaking of your style, Brian, so you went elite running back, Dalvin Cook, elite wide receiver. Is there any insight you can give us after Will makes his picks? Because I'm not going to have any sort of effect on
I
it.
think you know who I'm going to take, and I'm thinking he's going to come back around for this next pick, assuming Will drafts how I think he's going to draft.
Right.
So that's what I'm praying right now.
Okay.
I'm going to take
Chris Hogan.
Willie Bagels. Stalin. He's tilting. He's tilting your mound,
Good
too.
thing we have a 2-hour clock.
I'm going to take AJ Brown.
Okay. It's a good pick.
Solid pick. Going to be the number 1 wide receiver in this offense. His ceiling is capped with Julio Jones being there.
Yes.
But will he be the top 5 wide receiver with Julio there? No. But can he finish as a top 10 wide receiver? Certainly. There will be those weeks where it'll be Derrick Henry and Julio Jones scoring. And you're going to be wondering why A.J. Brown didn't get anything. But you will know that he's probably going to be the first look in this offense. The defenses will have to respect Julio Jones, so A.J. Brown's not going to see intense coverage like he did last year. So there's a lot of upside for A.J. Brown. It's just the Devontae Adams hope that people had before the season might not actually come to fruition.
And then I'm also going to take Jefferson.
Back-to-back guys.
Justin Jefferson finished last year as the wide receiver 8. Basically took over the starting role from Adam Thielen, saw a high 28-29% target share. I have confidence in Justin Jefferson. Like I mentioned in the episode last week, even if you take out those 2 boom games, he still averages out to be the exact same spot he was last year. He's going to have a great season. And here we are, Brian Tambo on the clock.
I think this is without saying, but I'm going to end up taking Clyde here. I'm also big on Clyde this year. I think he's going to have a great season. I think that, it's just the Chiefs offense is a powerhouse. He's going to probably end up getting, 15 to 20 carries a game. I expect big things out of him.
Calvin and Clyde.
Ooh, it's a good team name.
Calvin Clyde. So I actually am excited that Will went double wide receiver here because, Brian, as you alluded to, I knew who you were going to take. I didn't want you to take him because we both really want him on our team.
Exactly.
I would have loved the triple threat going Kamara, Gibson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
That would have been dangerous.
But because he's still on the board
Dangerous.
and he's going to get 1 million carries this year, I'm going to have Najee Harris as my third RB on my attack.
I would probably be the guy I would have took after
I
that.
definitely question your decision. Okay.
So after Najee, sorry, John, take a second to decide who you want. We saw J.K. Dobbins, George Kittle, Patrick Mahomes, Darren Waller go off the board. Now we're at third round, 8th pick. Who you got, John?
Who do I have? So I'm looking at DeAndre Swift, Keenan Allen, Terry McLaurin, and I told everyone, all our listeners, that I would marry David Montgomery if I could. I don't think he would, though.
He'd cheat on you.
Yeah, he probably would. I'm going to take Keenan Allen because Keenan Allen, we know who he is, and not only that, is he's got a good young quarterback throwing to him that likes to sling it. I think he's going to have a really great year.
I hope you're not heartbroken by this, but your boy David Montgomery went right before your next pick in round 4. As we saw the turnaround out to Terry McLaurin, Team 10 going 4 running back heavy, taking DeAndre Swift and Chris Carson.
Kind of messes us up here.
It does. It's a wild card you got to prepare for, though, Brian.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I got my 2 back. So.
Exactly. So now John's back on the board.
I'm back, baby. All right. So, looking at Allen Robinson, Josh Jacobs, Josh Allen, Mike Evans. So I'm sitting here in a position where I have an RB, a wide receiver, and a tight end. I'm good on tight end. Josh Jacobs is a high-end RB2, and it was going as the RB8, it's looking like. Is that what it is?
No, I think he's kind of going as like the RB 20 something right now because we already saw like 20 running backs go off the board, John.
Okay, all right, don't listen to me. But I'm still going to take Josh Jacobs. I am super ecstatic to have him as my RB2.
He hates fantasy football players, so.
So, Brian, you hate Josh Jacobs the most. So do you want to fill us in on all the red flags you need to be aware of, though, taking Josh Jacobs as your RB2 or RB3?
One, he absolutely hates fantasy football and everything about fantasy football. He said numerous times on television and has tweeted about it. He once said in a fantasy football playoff game that he wasn't going to start and then ended up starting in the game, forcing people to sit him in the playoffs. 2, the Raiders also have multiple running backs that they use. He usually plays one drive, and then they usually put in like Devontae Booker last year for an entire drive and so forth. I mean, Josh Jacobs is talent, but they for whatever reason, they just don't use him to his strongest ability.
He's the goal line back. He
is good.
He's
but
the
you just have
RB1.
to respect that
He's young.
they use other running backs too.
He's kind of yeah. Every team uses other running backs.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not worried about it even in the slightest.
So after Josh Jacobs go off the board, we saw Josh Allen, followed by a run on a wide receivers, which is disappointing because we saw Allen Robinson, CeeDee Lamb, Julio Jones go off the board. I would have really loved CeeDee Lamb to fall to me right here in the 4th round. I'm looking at Mike Evans, but as I mentioned earlier, I'm too scared to really just take a Bucs wide receiver. Even though Mike Evans, as we said, is the best, most talented, I just don't want to deal with those games where he has 3 catches for 1 yard. So I'm going to go with someone who I know is the number 1 on his team still, even though there's a lot of hype around the rookie or second-year wide receiver. I'm going to go with Amari Cooper as my wide receiver 1.
I like that. Well, now I'm put in a tough situation as well now, and I don't want Miles Sanders. I already told you how I felt about Mike Evans. Darrell Henderson, I'm definitely not taking. Could take Kyler, could take Chris Godwin, but I'm going to go with Mr. Reliable with a good quarterback and a good offensive season, and I'm going to take Robert Woods here.
Interesting pick. Why are you hating on Miles Sanders out of curiosity?
Why do you like Miles Sanders?
Because he's young, he's fast as hell, and he's only going to go.
Well, I got 2 running backs. I need a receiver.
Okay, all right, never mind.
But what are the real red flags by Miles Sanders, though?
He fumbles. He's not good, and
Whoa.
I'm just not a
I feel
big
like
Miles
you have
Sanders.
a
From last
hatred
season, well,
towards
if
Miles
you watch
Sanders.
any Miles Sanders last season, you would understand too.
I did watch Miles Sanders last season. What do you think? I live under a rock, Brian?
Okay.
So, go ahead, Will.
So first, I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pick Sanders for my second running back,
Great pick.
and then I'm gonna go back around.
Yeah, it's a guess. He's a rookie. I can ease back into it.
I'm gonna do Chris Godwin.
You're going to do Chris Godwin?
I'm gonna pick Chris Godwin, third wide receiver.
So you got a pretty strong wide receiver stack, Will. Any sort of insight that you could give us to what you're thinking for the later rounds?
I was honestly looking at quarterbacks for that second pick, but
Kyler Murray, I like.
that's what I was looking at.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take Kyler Murray.
So-
There's not many great players left. I mean, I could have took like a Mike Evans here or
Figure out a
DJ
tight end.
Moore, but I think that this spot that I'm in, Kyler Murray's definitely the guy to take. And I like taking quarterbacks later, but I feel like you kind of have to here.
So for me, this is the struggle because now it's back around in round 5. Mike Evans is still on the board. But at this point, I might take Mike Evans as my wide receiver too because he's definitely a tier above the guys that are left on the board. So I don't want him in wide receiver 1, but I don't mind Mike Evans as my wide receiver 2 because I feel confident in my running back attack with my first 3 picks. That I'll then deal with Mike Evans being my boomer bust wide receiver 2. After that, we saw Lamar Jackson go off the board, followed by Myles Gaskins, Darrell Henderson, Travis Etienne, and we're back at the end of round 5 with John Romney.
So I've got 2 backs, a wide receiver, and a tight end. We've got DJ Moore on the board. We also have, so I'm shooting for wide receiver here. Cooper Kupp and Adam Thielen. This is a tough one. I mean, we talked about DJ Moore earlier, and I think he's going to have a much better year this year, just solely due to the quarterback situation. Adam Thielen, we talked about him last week in the whole Vikings offense, and we don't think Kirk Cousins is any good at all. And Cooper Kupp also is going to get a boost this year. I am going to reach for Cooper Kupp because Matthew Stafford, the man's going to throw for a ton of touchdowns, high-powered offense, and Cooper Kupp's been as reliable as they come for the past 3 years now. Thank you.
That was my regret with our draft from last week. I kind of wish I took Cooper Kupp over DJ Moore. You made that decision this week, and after your pick, we saw Adam Thielen, DJ Moore, Kenny Golladay. Team 9 reached for Kyle Pitts in the 6th round. Now, John, you're back up on the board. You've got a pretty balanced attack with 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers at tight end. It'll be interesting to see who you can basically be slotting into your flex, or you could reach for a quarterback here. Is there any sort of process where you might be thinking of what you might do here?
Yeah, so you're right. It's either quarterback or flex. I could go quarterback or really anybody on the board. Quarterback-wise, we're looking at Justin Herbert, Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott. I'm tempted to do the Keenan Allen, Justin Herbert duo, but I don't like putting all the stock into one team. It's just not something I like to do.
It is one thing to remember this year, though. The NFL is going to be strict with their COVID policy. If there is a team breakout, the game will not be rescheduled. The team will be forfeiting. So the thing is, if you draft a lot of players to one team and that team has a COVID outbreak, you can be losing multiple fantasy players to one game. So it's just one thing you want to keep in mind while you're drafting your team.
It's definitely something to consider. I didn't bring my handcuffs today, but Kareem Hunt on the board. We talked about this last week. The best handcuff in the league, and even is great as a flex guy. God forbid Chubb goes down. Kareem Hunt is a top 5 RB. I'm going to take him as my flex.
After that, we saw Tyler Lockett, Mark Andrews, Dak Prescott, Deontay Johnson go off the board. Now it's back to me. I am thrilled with what's happened so far in this draft because
I hate this.
I get to take him right before Brian does. This is one of the most perfect spots to take him. I've got depth at running back. I've got my wide receiver 1 and 2. The top-end quarterbacks in these rounds have already been taken, so I get to take who I really want to take as my tight end this year is T.J. Hawkinson in round 6.
That's a good pick.
That is a good pick.
That's a good pick. Well, we also talked about this guy today too, and I'm big on him. I think I could plug him into my flex, and I think he's gonna have a great season. And before Will takes him, I'm gonna end up taking Mike Davis here.
Interesting. I thought you were going to take someone completely different. So I could see you taking him on the turn because you talked about him a lot.
I thought he was going to take Michael Thomas, didn't you?
I thought that Will would end up taking Mike Davis. I'd rather have Mike Davis in the situation right now.
It's completely understandable, and honestly, probably better in the long run. If this was a multi-year league, you probably would have gone with the other option. But
Definitely.
for redraft, Mike Davis is the better pick out of those 2 right now. So you got a pretty balanced team right now, Will.
I do. Thank you.
Do you have any sort of insight you could share with us about what you're going to do at the turn?
Just looking at these top guys right now, you see Chase. That's tempting. I don't really want Herbert. Edmonds, Thomas. That scares me. Don't
It's
say
just-
Mike Thomas anymore.
It's bad drafting to draft someone who's currently injured because that means you're just hoping that he bounces back,
Of
but that's
course,
not a
yes,
good possibility.
I'm gonna pick Chase. just because he has that connection with his quarterback already. So
That's a risky pick.
it is risky, but I have 3 decent receivers already.
So Will does have that luxury, though. He does have Chase as his wide receiver 4, so he's not forced to play him in any of the first few weeks while you're waiting for Chase to make that breakout. There is 100-plus targets waiting to be soaked up with A.J. Green's departure. I think everyone's expecting Jamar Chase to soak up all of those, and maybe even some more with his connection with Joe Burrow. So as Will makes his decision, Rodney, waiting on the turn, you're going to wait for a bunch of guys to go in front of us. Is there any sort of insight you can give us of what you're thinking for the rest of the draft?
Yeah, I mean, I got to take a quarterback at some point, but I also would like some wide receiver depth. So in my mind right now, I'm thinking, realistically, I mean, I don't think Herbert's going to fall to me. If he does, I'm going to take him. But if not, then I'm gonna supplement with the wide receiver that won't necessarily be in my starting spot. But as we know, bye weeks, injuries, it's always good to have some depth.
Sorry, John, I am picking Herbert.
Okay, that's fair.
Get the quarterback.
Brian Tambo back on the clock has a very balanced team right now. Most likely would be looking for wide receiver depth at the moment because he now has 3 running backs. He's got his quarterback. Needs some depth pieces for those important positions. There's a bunch of guys on the board. Brian, would you be taking Michael Thomas here in the 7th round with his injury, knowing his potential upside and his talent? Or
How
would
long
you?
is he out for the real question?
I think that's undetermined at the moment. It's kind of...
Everything I've been reading said he's going to miss a few games.
Yeah, I think the initial readings was he's going to be out to about
And they're pissed at
mid-October.
him because he didn't say anything.
Because he didn't say anything, yeah.
And he should have got surgery.
It's basically a situation where Michael Thomas could have got this surgery months ago and have been ready for the start of the season, but decided to not to and rest it. And now that he has gone the surgery route, he will be missing at least probably 6 games to start off the season, which
But
is
could
just,
win you a fancy championship if you do take him now and your team is well balanced before then. This is tough.
So for me, in your position, Brian, if I didn't take Kyler Murray and I picked another wide receiver as a depth piece there,
I would have too, yeah.
I would take Michael Thomas just to throw on my bench. But because you went early quarterback, you're trying to still build that important depth piece at wide receiver.
I agree. And I like a lot of these wide receivers out there, but I don't think he's going to come around to my turn. And again, I'm thinking big things for him this year. It's going to be a big stretch, and I don't think he's going to come back around, but I'm going to take Robbie Anderson here.
The dagger, Ryan. Because I know he was going to be my 8th round guy because I was not expecting him to
I didn't
go
think
early
he'd
in
come
the
back
7th
around.
round.
I know that I don't have a lot of picks coming around, and I wanted to take him now just for the sole purpose of it. It was a little bit of a stretch, but I had to do it.
So for me, I believe Teddy Bridgewater should and will win the quarterback battle. This man missed all of last year with an injury, but the year before, he finished as a top 20 wide receiver with Joe Flacco as his quarterback. So as my wide receiver 3, I'm going with Cortland Sutton because out of all the guys on the board, there's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of injury history. I just want to go with a guy I know that is talented and still can put up numbers against good defenses.
It's a good pick.
It is a good pick.
So as John is deciding about who he wants to take, we saw Brandon Ayuk, Javonte Williams, Michael Thomas, and Odell Beckham go off the board. Right now, at the top of the draft, we've got Chris Edmonds, Russell Wilson, T. Higgins, Chase Claypool, and James Robinson. John right now has a very balanced team. He's got 3 running backs, 2 wide receivers, one with the early tight end round, and Travis Kelce, which is a great start. Be interesting to see where he goes in the middle rounds because this is where you kind of build those depth pieces, or you're taking shots on guys that could break out, could break into the top 15, top 10, but they're late in this round or late in the later rounds because they have red flags like injury history, questionable teams, play styles. We're taking shots at this point, so it'll be interesting to see where John goes.
Yeah, so there's a lot of running backs on the board right now that are in there rank-wise. Quarterback, I could take Russell Wilson. I don't really want to.
Mr. Hot and Cold, Russell Wilson.
Yeah, Mr. Hot and Cold. So I'm gonna go receiver. I've got T. Higgins, Chase Claypool, both on pretty crowded offenses, don't you think?
They are.
and like both are arguably like wide receiver 3s. I'm gonna reach a little bit, and I'm gonna take DJ Chark.
Interesting, but petition to just start calling Russell Wilson icy hot on the show because
I like that.
Feels so good when he's hot, but feels so terrible bad when he's cold.
It's cold. I like that.
That'll kill your team.
So walk me through the DJ Chark pick, John, because I was high on him last year. I'm very bullish on DJ Chark this year, but I'm curious to see why you picked him in the 7th round.
Well, because the quarterback situation is better. He's been trending up the last few years, and I mean, he's got to be the wide receiver 1 now.
So he was the wide receiver 1 last year, dealt with a lot of injuries, lost Gardner Minshew, had a few games where when he was healthy, he did put up good numbers. But now we have Laviska Shenault making impact. They went out and signed Marvin Jones. We might have a new quarterback, new offensive scheme. So I think there's a lot of question marks around DJ Chark.
There's a lot of question marks, yes, but I'd prefer what's arguably the top wide receiver, even if it's on arguably a bad team. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to sling it, and I just didn't want to go with crowded offenses like T. Higgins and Claypool. And now around at the bend, I got to take a quarterback at this point, and I was eyeing Aaron Rodgers, knowing he was going to fall to me. So I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers. He's, I'm probably one of the last people to draft a quarterback, but I feel very good about my team, and Aaron Rodgers is my quarterback.
After that, we saw T. Higgins, James Robinson, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert go off the board. I'm going to take a short break to just restart our timer for the second half of our draft. Here in the back end of round 8, we've got a few guys on the board, and I really want to go with a guy who I've been taking a lot. I know I already have a very stacked running back room, but he's a guy I've seen in camp. I've taken plenty of photos of him. I believe Cam Newton will lose the job at some point, and if he does, this guy will get all the goal line work. So I'm going to be taking my man, Damian Harris, in the 8th round as my running back 4 as a very important depth piece.
I was going to take him, for sure. Now I'm in a tough spot where I only have 2 running backs, but I have 3 wide receivers. I've already gone down this wide receiver route where I kind of need to stack up here, and I don't like any of the running backs on the board right now. But I do like this wide receiver a lot, and I was hoping that he'd come back around because I knew you'd take Damian Harris. So I'm going to take Jerry Jeudy here, assuming that Bridgewater also wins the starting job and emerges from his rookie season.
So for me, it's very hard for me to take both Broncos wide receivers.
That's why I knew you were going to take Damian Harris there.
Because then you get into the position of which one do I start each week, and
Exactly.
I don't want that.
I think Jeudy and Sutton are both going to be very good this season.
Jeudy did finish last year as the wide receiver. He did have a lot of drops, but he was the wide receiver with the most uncatchable targets last year.
Yeah, I'm happy that I got Anderson and I was able to come back around and get Jeudy, because if I'm not able to get Sutton and I'm able to get Jeudy, I think they're both interchangeable, honestly. But Sutton definitely has an edge, but I think that Judy's also going to have a great season.
So I need a tight end, so I'm going to pick Noah Fant because he's the best option there.
Feeling pretty fantastic with that pick there at the end of the round.
I like Noah Fant.
Not many better options, Berkey. So, and then second pick. I think I need another running back.
We're looking at Christian McCaffrey, Miles Sanders, but you don't have a lot of depth at running back.
I do not.
Right now on the board is the presumed starter Melvin Gordon, while still dealing with Ronald Jones right there at the top. Melvin Gordon finished last year as running back 13, but there's a lot of feel that Javonte Williams will take over from him. But you could also look at it in the sense where they will run Melvin Gordon into the ground because he's on the last year of his contract. He could be a worthy pick in the 9th round as a running back 3, or could you be going for a different option at this point?
I mean, he was definitely the guy I was looking at. Obviously, Ronald Jones scares me. Like I said, I want to avoid him. Fournette. So I'm going to go with Gordon.
And interesting enough, we have 3 Broncos players all in a row right before we get back to Brian.
That is interesting. So, well, the running backs are pretty terrible right now. I do need a running back, but I also need a tight end. And he's definitely going to go on the turnaround here, and I really want him because I think he could have the potential of being a top 5 tight end with Fitzmagic this year. I'm going with Logan Thomas here.
Not a bad pick. I'm just scared with the history that Ryan Fitzpatrick doesn't really throw to his tight end, but
No,
he's in a new offense.
Full confidence.
Logan Thomas is a really big target
Very big.
with Curtis Samuel dealing with an injury right now that slots Logan Thomas as the number 2 target. So hopefully Ryan Fitzpatrick doesn't look at his positional listing and just sees him as a wide receiver, because that means good things for Logan Thomas. On my hand, I really need to build some more wide receiver depth. There's 2 guys on the board right now. It's kind of hard to pick between. We got Juju Smith-Schuster, who's honestly burned so many people, but that's because that his expectation did not meet the reality of where he finished. We've also got Deebo Samuel, who's been electric when he's healthy, but has the problem where he hasn't had a healthy season since high school. But I think with the home run factor at this point, I'll be taking Deebo Samuel as my wide receiver 4.
I like that pick. I like it a lot.
You're going to have to take a quarterback on the turn.
After that, we saw Ronald Jones, Juju Smith-Schuster, David Johnson, and Leonard Fournette go off the board.
Yeah, so I'm in a pretty flexible spot where I can pick really whoever I want. I've got all my positions filled here. Tom Brady's at the top. I do like the idea of having a solid backup quarterback in case, God forbid, Rodgers gets hurt. But I'm also cool with going with kind of a flyer at the quarterback position as my backup at least. Will Fuller is here. I've already got 3 receivers, 2 running backs. I'm going to take Will Fuller because, if the dude's playing, he's a good plug-and-play guy. But I'm also drafting him fully expecting him to miss, 3 games, 4 games this year. But I'm okay with that.
After that, we saw Curtis Samuel go, Trey Sermon, Tom Brady on the turn for Team 10. Team 9 took Tyler Boyd, and we're back to Romney. So still have plenty of guys on the board. We're starting to get through very thin players, a lot of ifs, a lot of maybes on the board. So it'll be interesting to see where players go.
Yep. So speaking of backup quarterbacks, I'm going to take a backup quarterback here. A man that runs the ball. Brian's very high on him. Jalen Hurts.
See, the thing is, I think in a 10 or 8 league, Jalen Hurts is the perfect quarterback to go 2-quarterback system, because if he does run into that wall where teams figure him out and he can't throw or run because teams know he's going to run, having Aaron Rodgers to pivot to is a fantastic pick. After that, we saw Michael Carter go, who I was really hoping would fall to me in this round.
Same.
Then we saw LaVisca Chenault, Jalen Waddle, Jarvis Landry, and I'm stuck looking at the board. Zach Moss, but I already have my 4 running backs. I don't need another one. And there's a list of just questionable players on the board. A lot of handcuffs, a lot of if and or buts. So there's 2 guys I know I really want to leave the draft with. So I'm going to take the quarterback that I want now in Ryan Tannehill. But if this guy doesn't get back to me, it will be because I took Ryan Tannehill around too early, because teams 1 and 2 already have their quarterbacks, so I know they're not going for another quarterback. I could have waited an extra round. But with the off chance that in another league there's a wild card team that wants to take a backup quarterback, I want to make sure I leave with the quarterback I want by round 10.
See, now that I waited for these RBs and I have to actually take someone here, I don't want to take this person. I've only said bad things about the person. However, he is still the only RB1 left on the board. I know he is hurt, but I'm going to have to take him for the sole reason that he is the RB1, and I don't want to.
Don't even tell me who it is.
I have to take Zach Moss here. I could take A.J. Dillon too, and I'm also thinking about it as well.
What about James Conner, though?
No, definitely not James Conner. 100% definitely not James Conner. I'm going to take Zach Moss. Pray for some random reason that the Bills actually come to light and be like, hey, Josh Allen, we don't need you throwing the ball 6 times a game. We're going to throw Zach Moss in there. Maybe get a couple touchdowns, maybe get a couple yards. But then again, I'm not high on him, so I just had to do it. Definitely not high on James Conner, too.
It's at this point, you're literally just hoping for the best.
That's what I'm hoping for the best right there.
Well, any insight you can give us on who you're looking at the moment? You've got a pretty balanced team.
Thinking of trying to think some good depth guys, and what is it, the 10th pick? I might go have a little fun with this one and go with Antonio Brown.
Solid pick in the 10th round.
There you go.
A guy I was hoping would fall back around to me, but there's still one guy on the board that I would still love as my 11th round pick. In your situation, there's not a lot of great running backs left on the board. Taking the long shot, the knowing that he's one of the most talented wide receivers in the NFL in the 10th round is a great pick, Will.
Thank you. Lucky Breck.
Brian, any chance you could let us kind of like the insight of where you're going at right now at the 11th pick?
To be determined.
What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm really looking at, like Irv Smith, Adam Trotman's this next pick. Really thinking strong on my backup tight end, just in case Logan Thomas isn't great. That's what I'm hoping for.
Is that a new hat, Brian?
Might be Dick right now too.
Nice.
Who you took?
No, I'm not gonna do that right now.
Tick, 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 tick. Well, you don't get this long in a draft.
Yes, I do.
I think in a regular draft right now, you'd have 20 seconds left on the clock.
I'm being a dick.
2 seconds.
Justin Tucker breaking the first kicker in our draft.
Oh, he did fall back around, so I'm gonna take AJ Dillon here for the other what if running back here because I need running backs. So.
I think it's kind of the situation where if it's a game where it's purely on the ground and it's a ground and pound all the way, AJ Dillon's gonna be a beast. If they're on the goal line, AJ Dillon's gonna come in and vulture the touchdown from Aaron Jones. But I just think you need to be within that 20-yard line for AJ Dillon to really pay off in one of those games.
100%.
So for me, in the 11th round, there's kind of like two wide receivers. I'm kind of surprised he got back to me. I just think everyone's really scared about his quarterback situation. Brandon Cooks is by far and above the best wide receiver on his team. But going into the season with Tyrod Taylor, no one is excited about that. Tyrod has never supported our wide receiver one. So I'm going to go with a guy who has had an 1,000-yard season. He's had a 10-touchdown season. He's never been able to put them together. But reports are he's being moved to the X spot, which is a primary role in the offense. The main touchdown guy in the red zone is gone. I'm going to be investing in Mike Williams here in the 11th round.
Mike Williams is good.
After that, we saw Matthew Stafford, Kenyon Drake, Brandon Cooks, Tyler Higbee go off the board. Now looking back at John Romney's pick, there are some interesting names on the board. He could go either way direction with the team balance, the team chemistry right now. Be interesting to see where he goes. What are you thinking right now, John?
I need a backup tight end. I have Aaron Rodgers. If Travis Kelce were to go down, I need someone to fill that role. I like the duo with him and Robert Tonyan. I'm going to take him.
With Aaron Rodgers being back, Robert Tonyan did finish last year with our tight end 4. Tonyan could see the second most receptions in this offense. He could become the number 2 target. For some reason, Aaron Rodgers only sees Devontae Adams. He's never been able to have a consistent wide receiver 2 in his offense. Tonyan could be the beneficiary of that. He could not be, but he will be guaranteed to catch a handful of red zone touchdowns because the team will be focused on Devontae Adams and not him. A lot of people remember him from his 3-touchdown game last year where Devontae Adams wasn't there. A lot of bad trades were made off of that. A lot of people got really lucky, and then a lot of people got really disappointed with what Robert Tonyan regressed to the rest of the season. But he was a perfect spot start if you were in the tight end stream.
Next up, coming around the bend here. Again, looking for some depth. I didn't bring my handcuffs again, but I'm gonna go with Tony Pollard because I'm gonna snatch him up because if Zeke goes down, I mean he's a good flex guy and trade bait for the person that does own Zeke. So I'm gonna take Tony Pollard.
After that, we saw Corey Davis, Gus Edwards, Mike Gesicki, Darnell Mooney go off the board, and I'm so excited for this next pick because I know he won't be coming back around to me because we only have 2 positional picks left. I'm going to reach for him, but I'm going to go to the river, jump in the water, go with Adam Trotman as my backup tight end in round 12.
Take me to the river.
Drop me in the water.
All right, now we're really getting down to some pretty terrible players now. I really would have liked Michael Pittman here if Carson Wentz was alive. I don't think Carson Wentz is alive right now. Hopefully he's doing well. I would take him in this situation, but I don't know who his quarterback's going to be. So I am actually going to take another wide receiver here. We have talked about him. They paid this man to be the wide receiver one in the offense. He does have a lot of people around him. However, if his rookie quarterback can come through, I'm going to take Marvin Jones here.
Marvin Jones.
Marvin the Martian.
Marvin the Martian.
On the board, Will, after taking the kicker, you're also going to go reach for your defense early? You still
It's
technically...
a possible thought.
You still have 3 positional picks left on your team going early with the kicker in round 11.
This was well worth it.
It's all right. I'm taking Harrison Butker.
So why did you take Justin Tucker as the first kicker off the board? I am curious.
It's Justin Tucker.
Yeah, but
He's always a good guy to have on your team.
fair, but he didn't even finish close to the top last year as a kicker.
He will this year, Greg.
This
I
year?
promise you that.
Promise me.
I've talked to him.
Are we gonna wager?
Yeah.
I bet you
Next
Harrison Butker
pick.
finishes over him.
I have a lot of receivers, 3 running backs. I don't want Irv Smith. Or
Family
Hunter
friendly.
Oh, sure.
Oh, bagels.
Yeah, that's strike 3, man.
Oh no.
That means you have to forfeit your number 1 pick.
Goes to the number 2 pick, right? So I get Dalvin in after.
It's only fair.
I'm gonna go with Pittman.
You're a little bit of a blank here, Will. Someone wasn't prepared for the back end of the draft.
I was not.
So with the current news,
Take a
why
pick
would
so I
you
can take
go
Butker already.
Pittman
Let's
this
go.
year?
What'd you say?
Why would you go Pittman if you know Carson Wentz is out? Do you still have faith in one of the backup rookie quarterbacks?
I don't, but it's his 12th pick.
See, I'm in a struggle right now because there's still a player I really want on my team, but it's a 10-team league, so he's still on the board. But I'm basically torn between 2 players. There's one that's a necessity for me, and there's one that's more of a luxury. There's one player I need to take because I don't want to deal with the nonsense of not having him on my team. But yet, there still is this other player that, if something was to happen, he could have a much larger role in his offense. Brian.
Latavius Murray.
Could be.
I'm gonna take Jamal Williams.
Cool.
Detroit.
Well, I already said I was going to do it, and I'm probably going to end up taking a kicker now, a
Butker.
player, and then a defense. So I'm going to take Butker now and secure that kicker spot.
Bucka.
That guy.
So the wide receiver that I really wanted was Michael Gallup because if Murray Cooper does get injured, goes out, that's my wide receiver 1. Michael Gallup will fill his role. But I want to make sure I get the insurance policy for my number 1 running back, so I will be taking Latavius Murray as my last positional pick. After that, we saw Devin Singletary, Matt Ryan, Michael Gallup, and Trevor Lawrence go off the board. John sitting here with his last positional pick. Be interesting to see which direction he goes. Has 2 quarterbacks, 2 tight ends, only 4 running backs, so he just took Tony Pollard. Team is very, very balanced, as you would look at his draft board, so he can go anywhere he wants to right now.
When thinking about the kicker position, it's always good to think about scoring potential and can they get into the end zone.
No, it's can they get over the 50-yard line but aren't good enough to score?
Correct. Yep. And I'm thinking just that. Yeah, and
Unless
also,
it's the Chiefs,
my
right?
man Younghoe Koo has a freaking steel leg. The Falcons don't really have a good running back situation, as we discussed earlier, which means it's going to be tough for them to get into the end zone. I'm taking Younghoe, and I feel very confident about that pick.
It's clutch.
After that, we saw Irv Smith, Henry Ruggs go.
Oh, the defense round.
Defensive round, we got Tampa Bay Bucks, Washington football team, back to Romney with either his last positional pick or he can pick his defense right now.
Yep, I'm going to pick a defense. I'm going to take the New England Patriots.
Week 1, they start with the Dolphins, could be a great pick. Then we saw the Ravens, the Rams, the Bills, and the Steelers go off the board. And since both of the teams next to me have taken their kickers, I know they won't be taking a kicker, so it would be smart of me to go for a defensive first. The 49ers, if they're all super healthy, will have a good defense. The Browns will have a good defense. The Broncos are a top defense, but they play in a very pass-heavy division. So right now, I think I'm just going to be picking blindly at this point. I'm going to be looking at matchups before I make my first defensive pick. I'll just go with the 49ers off the board.
I'm going to be doing the same thing. That's usually how I go off my defenses, but I'll take the Browns here.
And I'll take the Broncos.
Now, Will, you were forced to pick your last positional player. So
I'm going to go rookie. I'm going to go Elijah Moore, Jets. A bunch of people said he's been doing really well on camps.
Yep.
This guy almost led me to a fantasy championship if Derrick Henry decided to not drop 45. Lost by 1 point, but he was great for me in the playoffs. And when I started him at my flex, I believe in him this year again. I'm going to take him. I'm going to take Cole Beasley here.
I'm going to be taking my kicker at this point. We want guys that are on good offenses. I used to love having Rodrigo Blankenship, but with the giant question mark at quarterback, it means they probably won't be able to move the ball. So he's kind of off my board at the moment. I think Tom Brady is too efficient. He scores too many touchdowns, so I'm not going to go with the Tampa Bay kicker and Ryan Suckup. So I will be going with the Dolphins kicker, Jason Sanders, who finished as the kicker 1 last year. And now I've got Romney with his last positional pick. There is one player still on the board that I would absolutely love to just somehow hide on my team, even though he'd be a free agent. Be interesting to see where John goes.
Yeah, it will be interesting. So I'm going to go with the receiver here. And I'm going to take Nelson Aguilar.
And as the mystery relevant pick, we had Greg Zuerlein and Matt Crosby round out the draft.
Mason.
Mason.
You were close.
If he matters,
You obviously
I
didn't
remember
prepare.
No. Too bad he's stuck in my Mason jar for him to matter.
The pun's out.
All right, so reading our teams off the board. Will, do you want to go through your team by position, just so people can get a sense of how your positions look? Go
By
ahead.
position, I'll start with number 1 running back, man with the plan. Christian, big ego, McCaffrey.
Big ego. Sometimes gets hurt.
Kid friendly shot.
Yeah.
Then I did have to, my number 2 guy, Brian hates him and he hates Brian, Miles Sanders. Then with my
I did hear he
receivers,
does hate you.
I don't like him either.
I think he tweeted it one time.
he had a big year for me last year, and I expect even bigger things this year. AJ Brown. And then for some reason, I dropped him last year as week 2nd. And second week, third week, Justin Jefferson. I expect a big year for him. And then third receiver, I got Chris Godwin. Obviously him and Evans are going to show, I don't know. So I like him as my third receiver. And then fourth receiver, I got Jamar Chase. Obviously, he's a rookie. There's going to be question marks, but we'll have to see how that goes. And then fifth, who I think was a steal, Antonio Brown. You never know with Antonio Brown. They rounded out Michael Pittman, and then another rookie pick, Elijah Moore. And for the tight end, I got Noah Fant. I'm happy for where I got him. Quarterback, Justin Herbert. I don't know. I was torn on Justin Herbert, but
It's a good pick.
He's like aimed at a good season.
I think he's just so hyped up this year now.
He is.
Which kind of worries me, but
It's like he may not be able to keep the same level he was last year,
Yeah.
just because the defense will be better.
of course, the talent's obviously there.
Yeah.
Though, and then I got my kicker, Justin Tucker. Can't go wrong with Justin Tucker. And then I was kind of forced to pick the Denver Broncos, but they obviously have a good defense.
Brian, at pick 2. Let us know who you got.
Just going from position players. I mean, quarterback, I told you it's a running quarterback error. John also took Hurts in that situation because he almost didn't believe in Rodgers to the point, but good pick anyways.
That's not why.
I know, but
Rodgers.
good pick. I took Kyler Murray, though. I'm happy with Kyler Murray. I think he's going to have a huge season. I think the team's going to be better than it was last year. I think he runs for a lot of touchdowns, too, so I'm happy with that. Running backs, I took with the two-headed monster with Dalvin Cook and Clyde. Big things for Clyde this year is Berkey, as you know as well. My other running backs are not so great with Zach Moss and A.J. Dillon, but with my wide receiver depth that I do have with Calvin Ridley, Robert Woods, Robbie Anderson, Jerry Jeudy, Marvin Jones, and Cole Beasley, I probably would be able to trade for another running back in the sense that if one of my two guys were to get hurt, probably could trade for another running back, hopefully. However, I do like my wide receiver core because there's so much depth there. From tight end, I do like Logan Thomas. I mean, you did mention that Fitzpatrick doesn't always like his tight ends. However, I think that the way the football team, they do position Logan Thomas in an offense, I think he's going to do really well this season. I'm also thinking big things for Terry McLaurin too. So I think everyone in offense with Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin, and Logan Thomas are going to have great seasons. And then to round it up, I had Harrison Butker, my main guy. Probably had him 4 of the last 5 fantasy football seasons. Great kicker. And then defense is to be determined, but I took the Browns here.
All right, the third pick. I started out super running back heavy. If I get in this position, I might be calling my team Sir RB Us, 3-headed running back monster. So I went Alvin Kamara, Antonio Gibson, Najee Harris because you took Clyde. I could have seen you taking Najee Harris because I think Najee's in the situation where even if the team is bad, he's going to get so much volume that he still will be a top 15 running back at the end of the season. Running back 4, I took Damian Harris, who I do like a lot. He's fantastic between the 20s. If Cam does take a backseat and Mac Jones takes over, Damian Harris will get all the goal line work. Then I took my first round picks, handcuff Latavius Murray, because with the investment that I have, not every running back makes it through the full season. I don't want to lose my first round pick. It's production, so I took Murray. My wide receivers aren't as strong, but I'm happy that I have Amari Cooper as my wide receiver 1. My wide receiver 2 is Mike Evans, so I'm taking that boomer bust potential. Courtland Sutton comes in as my wide receiver 3, who, if he has the productive season that I'm hoping he does, he could see into my lineup. And I've got Deebo Samuel as a breakout, Mike Williams as a breakout. Got TJ Hawkinson, who's going to be a volume monster this year at tight end. And then I'm going with Ryan Tannehill as my late round quarterback strategy. He has been an electric quarterback ever since he took over from Marcus Mariota as a Titans quarterback. He has a new weapon in Julio Jones. Already has A.J. Brown. The defense has to respect Derrick Henry, which means Ryan Tannehill gets to air it out and sneak away with play-action passes and vulture some touchdowns. And they have a terrible defense, which means they have to score points. So Ryan Tannehill, I think, is the diamond in the rough of late-round quarterbacks. John, at pick 8, tell us about your team.
Saving the best for last. Championship team right here.
I also forgot Mike Davis, too, in my running back core. I kind of forgot about that one, but back to you.
Back to me. Okay, so first pick, I took Aaron Jones. As I said, I love Aaron Jones. I think he's on a high-powered offense, and he just gets fed the ball, both handed to and thrown the ball. So great RB1. Next, I went Travis Kelce with my tight end. I put a lot of stock in having a high-quality tight end, especially an elite tight end like Travis Kelce. Next, I went Keenan Allen as my wide receiver 1. I think he's a target guy. He could have 13 receptions in a game pretty consistently. Next, I went Josh Jacobs, controversial pick, but I think he's good in the RB2 spot and great in between the 20s. Next, I went Cooper Kupp. I feel really good about this one as my wide receiver 2 because of high-powered offense. Matthew Stafford's throwing him the ball now, and he's been a reliable guy for the past 3 years now. And then next, I went Kareem Hunt with the flex, the ultimate handcuff, but not really a handcuff because he's still a great guy to play. And then next, I went with my 7th pick. I went DJ Chark. He's not a starter for me, but he's wide receiver 1 in Jacksonville's offense. Good guy to plug in if somebody's injured or on a bye. Then I went Aaron Rodgers. I said I didn't want to take too much stock into one team, but I love Aaron Rodgers, and I think he's going to show out this year. Then I went Will Fuller, the injury-prone guy, but as a backup, I feel comfortable with that. Jalen Hurts is my backup quarterback, the running guy. He will score a lot of rushing touchdowns, and as Brian said earlier, 800 to 900 yards is basically a lock. And then we got Robert Tonyan, Tony Pollard, Younghoe Koo, Nelson Aguilar, and the Patriots defense.
You know, if they awarded fantasy points for Hums, I think you'd have a 30-point lead on all of us.
I think that was rude and uncalled for.
All right, so we're going to put our results on Instagram. Might throw them on Twitter. Let us know in the polls how you feel about each team. Ryan's been pretty salty lately because he's been getting slammed in the polls, been losing a lot.
I'm losing by like one vote to you, and you're just texting someone to outvote me by one person every single time.
That could be it. That could not be it. There have been some very decisive polls out there.
Yeah, so vote for me.
But as always, mock drafts, keep up with the news. Don't read in the coach speak. Look at where the money's going. Look at who's doing the first team reps. And always, end the podcast. Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Don't get the fifth pick.
Yeah, literally don't get the fifth pick. Fifth pick's bad.